Sorry, Surya ji, I've taken my seat before you entered. It's just that Antara ji is online and I just wanted to start. So what can one say about Lata ji? I mean, 40 years ago, she said, "Meri awaaz hi pehchan hai, agar yaad rahe." So the moment we all knew would happen has happened. She's not with us anymore. And while our years have changed, while our tastes have changed, there is no questioning that if there's one voice that defines Hindi film music for across 6 decades, it is Lata Mangeshkar's. We are joined online by Antara Chowdhury. So Antara, namaskar.
Namaskar.
Thank you for
Namaste.
doing this, and we shall extract a promise that you will be here in person next year. Can you hear me?
Definitely. Yeah, it's a little soft. I need the audio a little loud if possible.
Is this better?
No, it's still the same. Oh, I'll just increase my monitor here. Yeah, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
One mic has gone off here.
Right.
So I'll start.
I'm really honored. Namaskar. I'm really honored to be part of this Bhubaneswar literary meet, and to talk about Lata Didi is really an honor for me.
Okay, so we'll start with Antara ji. You are the one amongst us who actually have known Lata ji, and perhaps a good point to start is about how you met her and how your interactions with her have been over the years.
Yes, actually, I've been blessed to have been born in this illustrious family of Salil Chowdhury and Shobita Chowdhury and their daughter. So from childhood, I've had the pleasure of seeing these legends very close to my home, and they are like part of my family. So I'm really blessed. And the earliest memory that I have is when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and there was a recording of Lata Di's song called Ajnoy Gungun, very famous song of Lata Di in Bangla. And Ma had taken me for the recording at Western Outdoor Studio in Bombay. And I remember during the recording of this song, when Baba was teaching Lata Didi, when we were kids, we used to call her Lata Auntie. But now, since we have grown up, I call her Didi. And so when Didi was picking up this song on the harmonium, Baba was playing on the harmonium, it was very soft. She was singing very softly. So I was looking at my mom and saying, why is she singing so soft? I couldn't hear her. But then after a good amount of rehearsal and practice, because the language was Bengali, then once she comes to the microphone, it was, I don't know, it was out of the world, and it was a one take okay. So later my mom explained it to me that basically she was preserving her voice for rehearsals. So what artists we do, we tend to tire out our voices during rehearsal. And then when the final take comes, we tend to, keep on retaking. And at that time, there was no multi-track recording as such. So everybody had to sing and perform at the same time. So she was totally prepared, and then only she would come towards the microphone. So I remember this as a child. And another, in 2013 was the last when I really met her, was for the introduction of this book that we were releasing, Salil Rachana Sangraho, a compilation of 500 Bengali songs of Baba. And Lata Didi was kind enough to write the introduction for that book. So for that, I had gone with my brother Sanjay and my husband Tirthankar to meet her in Bombay. And at that time, Didi was so sweet. She was always a very sweet person and very simply clad and very like a child almost. And she started singing all of the songs that she had sung for my father, one after the other. Yeah, I like that song. And she would talk in Bangla. Ei ganta mone ache, oi ganta mone ache, and she would sing, Oh Jhar Jhar Jharna, Bashi Keno Hai, Ajare Pardesi. And then she would say, suddenly she said, Antara, मैंने जिस तरह तुम्हारे पिताजी के गाने गाए हैं और किसी ने नहीं गाया, मैं challenge कर सकती हूँ. So really, I felt goosebumps, and I thought really the way Salil, Lata, Jugalbandi, the contribution that they have done will be remembered for life as long as there's music in the world. So this is all I remember.
No, I was asking, I wanted to ask about your second question, but you answered a bit. What, this is very disturbing, the questions. Sorry for the audio problems. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's a delay now.
Okay. So you spoke about the collaboration.
Right.
So can you talk us through your father's relationship with Lata
Yeah,
ji?
yeah. They had a beautiful respect, mutual respect, admiration, love. And Lata Didi, I remember we used to get books of notation books of Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, the scores for Baba. They were very good friends, and they communicated at that level, where the composer, whatever he created, she would deliver. Because for my Baba, Lata Didi's voice was Ma Saraswati's voice. He's written that in one of his diaries also. I've seen that. And so, what he would do, his best creations, he would keep them specially for Lata Didi because he knew that she would do justice to his compositions. Because for my father, each composition was like his child. He would say, each song of mine is like a child of mine. So he would preserve it for Lata Didi, and he also experimented a lot with her voice. Like in a film called Maya, if you hear the song "Ae Dil Kahan Teri Manzil," it was a duet with legendary Dijen Mukhopadhyay, and Lata Didi was used over here just as an instrument. She just did the humming in the interlude. Ha 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 ha. And so beautiful, and that high pitch, and it's just not the high, the accuracy of the note. Dijan uncle in one of the conversation had said, because at that time there was only one microphone. So when Dijan uncle was finishing his song, he would shift and Didi would come and do her harmony or the humming, and he would say that if each note was passing through my ear behind, just like a churi dhar, like a sharp knife, and pitch perfect. So I was getting goosebumps. That was Ejan uncle was saying. So these kind of experiments Baba did with Lata Didi.
So I will now turn the conversation to the live participants. I'll start with Sonam. I'm sorry, I'm just, this echo is distracting me
Sure.
greatly. I don't know how we managed
Sure.
yesterday. So, what are your memories of Lata through the years? I mean, one does have to be a great fan of Lata, but she's literally in the Indian conscience. So,
I think growing up in India, she's right. It is very distracting to hear yourself speak 1 second after, but I'll try. I think growing up in India, your entire musical landscape was really strains of Lataji's voice. Um, whether it was on my parents' old record player, where you could listen to Tere Mere Milan Kiye. It's a bit hard to speak like this. Okay, so whether you were listening to Tere Mere Milan Kiye Rehna or you listen to the songs of Pakiza growing up, Lata Ji in Malvik, I'll tell you, I had a voice that was very different from what Lata Ji's voice was, right? And so therefore I went through in school personally some of my memories I'm sharing of being told apni awaz patli karo because that was the norm, right, of beauty. So for me personally, it was confusing because I couldn't understand where there was also Shamshad Begum or Noor Jahan, but there was also Lata Ji, and Lata Ji was the voice that everyone wanted to be. So, I think growing up, I also perhaps wanted to sing like her and have a voice like her, but I think it took me many years to understand the uniqueness of the individual voices, but to stay in admiration of her and the fact that she spanned, what, 7 decades of music, had an incredible 4 octave range. She had the agility and an acrobatic voice almost, which could do anything. It could go seamlessly from singing a classical bandish to a very playful Savan Ka Mahina to a very sensual Lag Ja Gale or Bindiya Chamkegi or, there were so many songs that she did, which was so, so very beautiful. And I think only because she had such great command and training very clearly in Indian classical music.
I was going to ask you about the
Yeah,
training as well.
100%. Please, I'll
No,
let you
so
answer.
yeah, so people talk about her range. She sang every kind of song. So how do you think that could it just be the classical training, or was it, endless practice? Antara has spoken about that as well. So, how as a singer, can you just attribute it all to classical training, or is there more?
Well, I will contribute it to a number of factors. I think Indian classical training, and I've seen this because I've studied opera myself and I've studied Western forms of music. When you have a really solid grounding in Indian classical music, I don't believe anything actually prepares you for music as well as Indian classical music does. Whether it's Hindustani or Carnatic, there is just a certain rigor, hours of discipline, hours of obsession, and because a lot of it is from the gut. There's no real, every guru will teach you differently, right? So there's no curriculum, whereas in the West, there's a certain style of curriculum which has also got its merits. But I think that because your relationship is so close with your guru, there's a different something that comes in terms of creating the foundation. I also think hours and hours of practice, which she clearly did. But what was interesting, and I was thinking about this since our last conversation, I think also because she was an actress. She started acting when she was 13. I think that really lent the extra edge to her because she was able to understand when she sang for many different actresses. She adopted their voices or their nuances. She also understood the lyric because perhaps, I mean, I'm only telling you what I assess. I think because she understood theater, she was able to assess the meaning of a lyric and pour her heart, her soul, and her skill into it. So I think it was a combination of obviously the gift of God of having a voice like that, her own absolute dedication, her incredible voice, her pitch perfect voice, really. Um, as Antara said, I mean, and I've done enough reading, she had the good fortune of being able to see her up close. But everyone says she was in an era before auto-tune. So everything she sang impeccably, perfectly. But it is also, I think, I believe largely Malvika anyway, a lot of it comes from the kind of person you are as well. So I believe she had a lot of soul, but I also believe that her theater really brought all these elements together and allowed her to be this sort of well-rounded musician, who could really express the true soul of a song.
Okay. So, Surya ji, now it's your turn to fight the echo. Uh, Lata ji, the discography of Lata ji, from Mahal to Khuddar, where she was singing Disco 82.
Kajib, Shudamji, and my Minu girl. Actually, the song I was listening in my childhood, Kali Re, Tutto Kali Kali Re, Antaraji.
Yes.
I'm a fan of yours. Actually,
Thank you.
let me start from one of Salil Chaudhary music. तुम अगर जाओ कहीं जाओ कभी
हाँ,
वक्त
हाँ.
से कहना जरा वो ठहर जाए वही वो घड़ी बीत जाए ना
Mhm.
समय बीतता गया वक्त चेंज द मीडियम ऑफ म्यूजिक चेंज फ्रॉम gramophone record LAC record to SP EP LP then CD then pen drive but nowadays we're listening song on YouTube but the voice of Lata ji never changed never वक्त के साथ ऐसा बीतता गया लता जी की आवाज वो इमोर्टल रही और रहेगी हमेशा मुझे लगता है आई डू बिलीव दैट लता जी स्टिल देयर because whenever emotion is there, sentiment is there, and the pathos is there, Lataji is there. Lataji may not be here, but she's there with her song. Lataji voice is quite different. It's uh, ऐसा होता है कभी कभार कि वाद्य यंत्रों के साथ म्यूजिकल इंस्ट्रूमेंट के साथ बहुत कम अवसर मिलते हैं कि सुर लग जाता है अगर आपने बांसुरी के धुन पर मैं पिया तेरी तू माने या न माने बसंत बहार का गीत सुना होगा या आपने सुनी होगी अगर वो गीत था बेदर्दी बालमा तुझको मेरा मन याद करता है तो उसमें आप बांसुरी और सहनाई की आवाज सुन पाएंगे और लगेगा किसी तौर पर लगेगा कि सहनाई और बांसुरी लता जी के गानों के साथ मिल गया है घुल मिल गया है this infusion is quite different and nobody can do it nobody many singers tried to emulate Lataji but they failed and see the ranges um, the song मेरा ये हुस्न मेरा ये हुस्न जवान the song the very light song बैठ गई घूम जा खड़ी हो गई and सत्यम सिम सुंदरम and the song, uh, Pardesi, Aja Re Pardesi, and see the ranges. Uh, मैं नदिया फिर भी मैं प्यासी. That is one step. The next step is something different. The next step is something different. And the expression, she infused into the lyric, she infused into the music. That that is immortal. बड़ी बात मुझे यह लगता है कि लता जी उनका जो छंद प्रकरण है एक्चुअली द स्टाइल ऑफ ब्रीदिंग एक नोट से दूसरे नोट जाने के बाद जो सांस कहाँ पर छोड़नी चाहिए सांस कहाँ पर लेनी चाहिए द स्टाइल ऑफ ब्रीदिंग दैट इज डिफरेंट एंड दैट इज Lata's own creation. Initially, when he was singing, she was singing in E, D major, and F. And just to if you listen to Lata's every type of music, you'll be आप खो जाएंगे like कहीं एक दूर दिग्वलय के सामने हॉरिजन के सामने खो जाएंगे और जब तक आप खोएंगे तब तक लता जी हैं लता जी स्टिल देयर.
That's beautiful. So now coming back to Antara, uh, you mentioned this song from Maya. There's
Yes.
another song by Mukesh, Mere Khwabon Mein Khayalon Mein, where she again does the chorus. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do it. I wouldn't dare. You know the song I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Mere
yeah, yeah.
Khwabon Mein Khayalon
मेरे
Mein.
ख्वाबों में ख्यालों में कहीं, that one.
Yeah, so she does
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
similar in that song.
Yeah, another staccato singing. Yeah, and she was so good in that, and she's good in everything. As Dada said, and even you said, she every kind of songs that she's sung, she's given her own and the little breathing. I don't know how she had this lung power, that this small breath she would take, and you won't even understand where she's taken. In Bangla, we say chora dom. That is, she wouldn't even. In fact, my father would say that listen to Lata Di and learn how to end each note, each line, the breathing. You have to sing the end of the line with that full breath. So this is a practice that you have to do from Lata Didi. Baba would tell me that. And another thing is how he's used her voice as just like Sir was saying, like a flute and like violin. Her voice had this beautiful combination, and Shehnai. And in fact, Baba's favorite instrument was flute. He was basically a flautist, my father. And so in many of Lata Didi's songs that Baba made, starting from Jare Ur Jare Panchi, Bengali Jare Ur Jare Pakhi, or even Ajare Pardesi the prelude starts with the flute. And then in Bengali, this another song is Omar Moina Go, or O Jhar Jharna, all has beautiful flute and Lata Didi's voice. So both were very favorite, favorite instrument, favorite voice of my father's. The way he used these two combinations, I think, is very unique.
One more thing I wanted to ask you. I think you'll be leaving in a few minutes.
Yeah,
So let me,
yes.
yeah. So just two quick questions to you. One is your father his musicography was defined by, experiment, the way he used Western classical music. There's a song from Chaya, which
Right.
so how did he and Lataji collaborate on these innovations? And also briefly you can talk us through him composing songs for her in Malayalam in films like Chemmi.
Right. Actually, she sang in the film Nellu in Malayalam.
Nellu, yes.
Nellu in 1974. Yeah,
Sorry,
actually, Lata Didi, when my father found Lata Didi, he knew whatever he created, whether it was a Western classical kind of composition, whether it was folk, whether it was Indian classical like Janana Janana Baje, or any kind of composition, if you give Didi, she will do justice to it because her range was so wide. So my father experimented in that way with her voice. And as you said in the Malayalam film, Nellu, it was directed by Ramu Kariyat, who was the director of Chemmin. So Lata Didi, that was the one and only Malayalam song of Lata Didi. Kadali Kan Kadali Chen. Although I don't know the language very much, but this is very popular over there also. But what I was saying is they would have discussions on music, and they were very good friends, and they would have discussions. Then let's do this like this. In fact, Ajare Pardesi, as my mother had told me, Srimati Shobhita Chowdhury, that Bimal Roy, so Bimal Kaka had initially rejected that song because he said it's not going with my film situation. But that tune was so close to Lata Didi's heart. She said, "Nah, Bimalda, you have to keep this song." and otherwise I will not sing for you. And this is what my mom had told me. So then this song was kept in the film and it has become history. And in fact, Madhumati was the only film where Lata Didi got, I think, her first Filmfare Award, and even Baba got his one and only Filmfare Award for Madhumati. So all the songs in that film were like super duper hit. And in fact, even in Dobi Ka Zameen, the Lori that Didi had sung, Neend Pari Lori Gai, and that was also a unique treatment of Lata Didi's voice and the way Baba used her in various songs.
So before we let you go, there's
Yeah.
the inevitable question. Can you sing us a song, at least a part of a song that you truly think defines the specialness of your father's collaboration with Lataji?
Yeah, my father's favorite pool flower was Rajinigandha. And that song was very close to my dad's heart. Although each song was like his child, but I want to just sing a couple of lines from this song, which is a favorite of mine too. रजनीगंधा फूल तुम्हारे महके यूं ही जीवन हाँ यूं ही महके प्रीत पिया की मेरे अनुरागी मन में रजनीगंधा फूल तुम्हारे महके यूं ही जीवन में हाँ यूं ही महके प्रीत पिया की मेरे अनुरागी मन में. And we never can forget, oh sajna, बरखा बहार आई रस की फुहार लाई अखियों में प्यार लाई ओ सजना. Each song is a landmark.
Yes, indeed. And even in these films, there's Gira Hai
Yes.
Kisi Ka Jhumka. In the
Ji.
other film, there's a classic by
Yes.
Mukesh, Kahi Baar Yu Hi Maine Dekha Hai.
Yeah,
So thank you, Antara. This
my
discussion
pleasure.
is actually, it can go on endlessly. But
Yes,
thank
yes,
you, and
my
hope to see
pleasure.
you at a festival live some year. Thank you
Definitely.
so much.
Thank you for
Namaste.
inviting me. Thank you. Namaste.
So now we'll move to the two of you. So, Sonam, you wanted to ask.
No,
Just before I start, can we cut off the Facebook now? We don't need to live with this echo anymore. Yeah, thanks. So you were talking
no,
about.
exactly what Dada was saying and Antaraji was saying is that she was so beautifully classically trained that I think Pandit Vinayak Torvi said that she could easily, if she had decided to become a classical singer, she could have been another Kesari Bai Kerkar or a Kishori Amonkar. But because life had a different sort of journey in store for her, because she had to become the breadwinner of her 8 people in her family at the young age of 13, she went into Bollywood. But in so many ways, it was a wonderful thing for all of us because she became more accessible to the masses. And she popularized classical music as well, which is actually one of the things she's not that famous for, which is a big legacy as far as I'm concerned. I think if you just cut off the delay, आप delay काट दीजिए या reverb काट दीजिए. Amplifying on रखिए. Delay काट दीजिए. Check. Check.
Is it possible to remove the delay which was happening because of the Facebook? It's cut? We are getting it. Anyway, we shall soldier on.
Yeah. No, so that's what I was saying about
Yeah.
classical
So
music.
would you say that? I'll throw that to you as well. That there are songs from films like the movie with Rahana Sultana, Dastak, which has truly classical songs. There are songs Pandit Ravi Shankar, Hai Ye Wo Din Kyun Na Aaye. So do you think she doesn't get enough credit for actually in many ways mainstreaming some form of classical singing.
Lata is Lata. I think classical song and non-classical song, ghazal.
We
You
have
can't
an
bind her. You know,
unreserved fan
you
among
can't
Like,
us.
bind her.
but we're asking very simple
Yeah.
question. She actually popularized classical
Yes,
music,
yes,
but
yes, yes,
उसका
yes.
credit उनको नहीं इतना मिलता है ना.
ताकि लता जी है कोई उनको कोई क्रेडिट का मायने ही नहीं रखता एक्चुअली कोई मायने ही नहीं रखता नो 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 एंड जस्ट लेट मी पुट ए एग्जांपल व्हेन लता जी was supposed to sing the Odia song in 1963 in Suryamukhi. So first she wanted to know the meaning of the lyric. Hey chuna chuna tarafulle aji. So she wanted to know what is that chuna chuna tarafulle. So उनको समझाया गया कि चुना चुना तराफुले like the twinkling stars in the skies. Then she put her own, style of rendering in Chuna Chuna Tanafula. That's why the song is super. And that basically that rendition, that alap, that even though alap was not in the original composition, but it was a super duper hit. And now it is also, but it's very popular. So music is music. So to me, classical music, non-classical music, ghazal, nazm, folk music, Lata is Lata, and Lata is a music. Lata is a music emotion. You can't you can't आप बांध नहीं सकते उनको जैसे नदी को नहीं बांध सकते आप उनको नहीं बांध सकते
So basically, you can't say that she's just, restricted to this or because of her. Fair enough. Now, now we are looking back at her legacy in 2022. New voices, there's Coke Studio, which brings certain very, very classical singers from Pakistan. You have Abida Parveen ji, you have Farida Khanum. Then through them we go back in time, we listen to Iqbal Banu, and then our ears are now talking about a more classic Begum Akhtar kind of voice. And a lot is put on Lata's doorstep, saying she created only a certain kind of voice for our ears. How do you evaluate this criticism against her
So,
phenomenal legacy?
so I'm actually going to go back to you and me talking about this a week ago. And I did a lot of thinking about it in this last week because we had sort of sparked this conversation. And I listened to her a lot and I realized that that was the quality of her voice. It was the same voice when she spoke, it was the same voice when she sang. What sadly started to happen in the Indian musical landscape is you would have girls like me with this voice, but the minute they sang, they would try and copy Lata ji. पतली आवाज कर देते थे क्योंकि इनके जहन में ये बात डाल गई थी that a woman's voice must be sweet, which was what created the confusion because there's a film I think in which Shamshad Begum, I'm forgetting the name of the film, Shamshad Begum and Lata ji are singing together, and both their voices, unique in their styles, sound
Kajra Mohabbat
yeah
Wala.
they sound beautiful together, right? So that's always been what India is. But I think what was interesting is that Lata ji, her voice could be sensual. It's not always childlike. She did start learning when she was 13, but she was immensely sensual when she sang Lag Ja Gale, or she was very romantic when she sang Tere Mere Milan Ki Rehna. She was playful when she sang Savan Ka Mahina. She was kind of jazzy when she sang Ajib Dasta. And as Antara was saying, that's very Western classical, right? That's because she listened to Chopin and Beethoven. And so I think that the more that I have spent time learning about her as well, I think that she was really a student through her life and she wanted to keep assimilating and learning. And she brought so many different colors to her voice. That being said, in favor of her and in praise of her, sadly, what it did do was it created a lot of copies and a lot of people, and I'll say mostly men or teachers, gurus, male gurus, putting the female voice down to say, अगर आपकी आवाज पतली नहीं है तो मीठी नहीं है, which was the wrong thing for them to have done. I don't think it was Lata ji's intent at all. In fact, I think she's perhaps one of the greatest feminist icons we have, which we'll, I'm sure, talk about. But I think it was more a function of the Indian male idea of what a woman should sound like, this virginal child. And it's all too often the burden of it is put on her, which I don't think is fair.
I think that's something, since you're the male on this female panel, uh, the voices who were similar to her, some out by sheer birth and some by design. Uh, but do you think it was a time? Because that's the other part of the conversation Sonam and I had. You had P. Sushila, you had Saukar Janaki, you had Sandhya Mukherjee. So you had these very, very thin, patli awaz right across India. So do you think it was just a function of the times?
And the Suman Kalyanpur too.
A
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
later.
Little later. Suman Kalyanpur, P. Sushila, S. Janki, Sandhya Mukherjee. पर मुझे ये लगता है कि लता जी की जो आवाज थी पहले तो पतली थी ही, और पतली के समय के साथ साथ उनकी आवाज जो कैसी वो थी। पर मीना कुमारी जी के लिए अलग आवाज, जया जी के लिए अलग आवाज, रेखा जी के लिए अलग आवाज, हेमा मालिनी के लिए अलग आवाज। मुझे तो अचरज होता है कि इतनी सारी विविधता, डाइवर्सिटी कैसे आ गई। और वो दैट इज गॉड गिफ्टेड, दैट इज गॉड गिफ्टेड। एंड उसके पीछे और एक बात बस साधना। लता जी जिस तरह से साधना करती थी, मुझे पता है कि एक बार उड़ीसा के प्रफुल्ल करा जी ने उनसे मिलने गए थे, एक म्यूजिक के सिलसिले में गए थे। और उस दिन लता जी का एक रिकॉर्डिंग था, तो उन लोग जैसे ही गए तो एफ शार्प मेजर में कुछ ट्यूनिंग बन रहा था। उन लोग बात करने के लिए कोशिश किए पर कर नहीं पाए। पर लता जी जब बात कर रही थी, वो उनकी बातों में वो लहर आ रही थी, एफ शार्प माइनर। पर इन लोग ना प्रफुल्ल करा जी बात कर पाए, ना उनके साथ जो गए थे वो बात कर पाए, हर बार सुर छूट जाता था। But that was the dedication, that was the sadhana. And for that sadhana, and for that dedication, for that music, for that her rendition, and moreover feelings, आप सुनिए कोई भी गाना उठा के लग लीजिए, आहा रिमझिम के ये प्यारे प्यारे गीत ले उठा लीजिए, और उठा लीजिए बिंदिया चमकी को उठा लीजिए, कोई भी गाना आप उठा लीजिए, तो उसमें आवाज की जो कशिश और जो डाइवर्सिटी आपको मिलेगी, जो फीलिंग्स आपको मिलेगी, वो किसी और सिंगर में नहीं है। बहुत सिंगर ट्राई किए कि मैं लता बन जाऊं, मैं उनसे कॉपी करूं, जैसे कि रफी जी और लता जी के बीच में रिफ्ट हो गया, और सुमन कल्याणपुर रफी जी के साथ गाने लगी। पर क्या हुआ? कुछ नहीं हुआ। लता जी से लता जी। बीच में ऐसा भी हुआ कि आशा भोसले जी और लता जी के बीच में रिफ्ट हो गया, पर हुआ क्या? लता जी, लता जी। Nobody can replace Lata ji. No, never.
As I said, we have an unreserved fan in our midst. So so you mentioned, this fact that she was in this male-dominated industry, and even Surya ji just mentioned, equally iconic Rafi Saab. There are, stories about them having a rift. So in many ways, do you think she was a woman ahead of her times? She marked her territory. She was extremely ambitious, and she matched her ambition with competence, with hard work, and with making sure she's ahead of the game, to use a modern phrase.
Absolutely. And I think that she probably had to get this strong because, as I said, she had a family to feed from the tender age of 13. That's a huge responsibility, right? Um, what's interesting to me, and again, this is something I've been thinking about, is she's constantly told कि लता जी बहुत ambitious थी. और ये इंटरेस्टिंग बात ये क्यों है कि जब औरत एम्बिशियस होती है तो बुरी बात हो जाती है, बट जब आदमी एम्बिशियस होता है तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। लता जी भी तो एम्बिशियस थी तो बहुत अच्छी बात थी। तो हम क्यों उन्हें एम्बिशन का जब लेबल लगाते हैं तो एक sort of as a criticism क्यों लगाते हैं? So the fact is she was ambitious because she had to be. It was a matter of survival. It was a matter of her knowing her skill and her wanting to get ahead in life. All admirable qualities, right? I think I say she was a feminist also because Dada just spoke about the rift she had with Rafi Sahab. And that was very good reason. I mean, we all know that she had this rift with him because she wanted to be paid part of the royalties, which only used to go to composers. And she said they should go to the singers as well. And Rafi Sahab said, no, no, we must do art for the sake of art. And she said, yes, I do art for the sake of art, but I also want to be paid for this. And she also ensured that women playback singers were paid I think she is the reason they even instituted a Filmfare Playback Award because she refused to sing at an awards function because the composer was going to get the award. And she said, but what about us? In fact, with SD Sahab, the reason for the rift was because he said, I make you. I, the composer, make you the singer. You are famous because of me. And she said, that's not fair. And she didn't speak to both these men. And at that time, to fear and face the loss, the possible loss of work, and there was a loss of work, to stand your ground, people don't even do it today. I mean, she did it at a time when women were meant to be seen and not heard. She did it at a time against two of the greatest stalwarts of the music industry. So, hats off to her for everything that she stood for. And another criticism she gets is that she had these walls up about her. I actually see that as a great quality. She never let her personal life really flow into her professional life. She didn't bring her personal life to work. She maintained an air of dignity. um, she has every right to have that wall as a safety net around her. So a lot of the criticism that she got, I think she got just because she was a woman who was taking a stand at a time when men didn't want women to be taking stands. And she paved the way for so many women, for so many playback singers, for them to get their due. So that's admirable.
So now we'll go into more personal, what your personal takes on Lata, her contemporaries, your favorite songs of her. So, in Odisha, one thing that I again think is very admirable about her is she was fearless about singing in different languages. It is simply remarkable. So, tell us about the Odia Lata ji.
Before going into the Odia song, you are talking about the SD Burman Saab. And actually, what I went in guide, there is a very long song, of around 8-minute song, 4 stanzas. Piya to se neha lagare. Basically, Piya to se neha lagare. This song, the tuning of this song is from Odisha. Molly Mala Samaku Devi. उस समय ये हो रहा था कि दैट्स अ छंद बेसिकली उस समय ये हुआ था कि यहाँ का देवगढ़ का एक वाज द किंग ऑफ देवगढ़ इट्स देवगढ़ द प्रिंसली स्टेट and Mr. Pradipta Gangdev was the assistant to S.T. Burman Saab. And his name was coming on the screen as assistant music director Dev. Pradipta ji ने ये गाना सुनाया S.T. साहब को. S.T. साहब चेंजेस लाए. लता जी को जब ये पता चला जब उनको सिखाया गाना तो वो मुझे बोले कि तो वो उस समय बोले कि मुझे उसको पूरा गाना सुनना है. व्हाट इज दैट छंद, व्हाट इज द ट्यूनिंग, मुझे पूरा सुनना है. उनको तो पूरा गाना आता नहीं था पतिता जी को. तो ढूंढा गया क्या है. उस समय उड़ीसा के और एक बहुत पॉपुलर सिंगर बॉम्बे में रहती थी. अभी उनको पद्मश्री मिला गया है. श्याममणि देवी. श्यामामणि देवी को बुलाया गया और वो पूरा गाना गा के सुनाए. मल्ली माड़ो श्याम को देवी मन तुसी. Then only Lata ji starts singing this Piya Tu Se Neha Lage. And into Odia song, Mr. Somendra Misra, who was a hero to Sri Loknath film in the year 1960, he was in Ramanand Sagar production in film Jindagi. And somehow उनको लता जी ने भाई माना. लता जी उनको राखी बांधती थी. जब वो अपना पहली फिल्म करने लगे सूर्या मुखी, वो म्यूजिक कर रहे थे तो लता जी बोली कि मैं गाना तो जरूर गाऊंगी, एक गाना गाऊंगी पर पैसे कुछ नहीं लूंगी, बिल्कुल कुछ पैसे नहीं लूंगी. वो राग कलावती के ऊपर वो गाना था और उसमें उस गाने के अंतरे में पूरा आरोह के शीर्ष आरोह तक पीक आरोह को जाके जो आवाज छोड़ दे के आपको ऐसा लगेगा कि मुझे भरा बोड़र and that word boulder is date of when Arundhati was supposed to be produced. Again, Santanu Mahapatra went to Lataji and requested her to sing the song Aji Musrabani. Aji Musrabani is a song that was set to Rag Darwari and Rag Myamala. And initially with Anibadha Alaf, then Nibadha Alaf, then Tara Saptaka to Mandara Saptaka. And the balance between Tara Saptaka to Mandara Saptaka, Lataji did it so efficiently. I don't think anybody can do it so efficiently. And whenever you listen the song, I feel cry whenever I listen that song, Aji Musravan. And I do, I romanticize myself when I listen to E Chuna Chuna Tarapule Aji. These two songs, and there are many more songs you are supposed to sing. I think Salil Chowdhury composed for the Odia film in Batasi Jhada in there in 1984. And the song sang by Savita Chowdhury, Erim Chimmirati Barsarati. That was supposed to be sung by Lataji, and another duet, E Lakhi Jai Akhi, which was rather rendered by later Shikadaralam, Yeshudas, and Hemlata. That was supposed to be recorded in the voice of Rafiji and Lataji. But unfortunately, that didn't happen because some problem was there that didn't happen. We have two songs of Lataji, and we are proud. We live with the song. Thank you.
That's wonderful. So, Sonam, do you have any favorite songs?
Many, actually.
Mhm.
I remember singing on my parents' terrace, Tere Mere Milan Ki Arena, a lot because it was one of my mother's favorites. One of my favorites is Allah Tero Naam because to me it symbolizes everything that India is and the secularism. Allah Tero Naam, Ishwar Tero Naam, whichever name you call him by. So that's very special. And she's really done that beautifully. Eh Mere Vatan Ke Logo, which brings tears to all our eyes. Um, I also love Sawan Ka Mahina, which is very sweet because it's kind of playful and it shows another side of Lata ji. Naina Barse. I mean, like I said, the list is endless, but I love Ajib Dasta because it's simple, but it's so pertinent. The lyrics are beautiful. Also, I like the way she kind of, as you said, changes her voice for that. She has a different quality about her voice, a different personality, which is what's really lovely about it.
Would you?
I would love to, but with latency, it's almost next to impossible because if I sang अजीब दास्तां है ये, I'd have to listen. Can you see what happens? कहाँ should I can sing without the mic. Pull the lyrics out because when you're check latency आ रही है बाद में आ रही है आवाज आप ले लीजिए मैं बिना mic के गाती हूँ I will go into the audience.
It's okay. Let us sing. Let us. You go into the audience. You go into the audience. Is it still there? It is still.
ये मंजिलें हैं कौन
I've had a very bad experience. Like old, so you can't blame him.
I've spoken to you once.
मैंने एक बार एक चीज बोलता है फिर एकदम opposite बोलता है.
Oh, you won't believe that the just together from
It's entirely our fault. It's not his fault. I have a colleague who just left like last week and she left to the mess. Especially in his case. There isn't that much of a mess.
and today, Santisna, Kapilas, they called me the we have
She has messed up this session very badly. This is the one session I gave to her. And she spoke to you, not just that. So she left after that. Thank you. Now it's finally gone. Yeah, but well, do you think you could do a quick Sawan ka Mahina? Maybe it will actually invoke some rain.
Check. Mm. I'm a bit tired after seeing very loudly there. Can I leave it? I have to figure out the key. It's different once you know. सावन का महीना पवन कर सोर जियरा रे झूमे ऐसे जैसे मन माना चे मोर सावन का महीना पवन कर सोर जियरा रे झूमे ऐसे जैसे बन माना चे मोर.
Thank you for being such a sport. Sonam has actually had to sing really loud to reach all of you. Thank you so much. So that's Lata ji. I think we could have 17, 20, a whole festival on her, and the conversations would not end. So yes, today we listened to her from a different perspective, but what she brought to Hindi cinema music and to many languages. Yes. So yes, that's true. Rahe na rahe, hum mehka karenge, ban ke kali, ban ke sawa, baage wafam. Yeah, that's a beautiful song, and I guess that's the best. So thank you, Surya ji, for ending it for me. So thank you for this session. I know we were dipping into a massive legacy, and many of you would feel, why didn't they mention that song? Why didn't they mention that director? We've not even spoken about Kishore Kumar, but it is just too big a discography for one discussion. Thank you. Go back to your Spotify's and listen to her in the evening. Thank you so much.